We're very fortunate to be talking with Gary Prisk. And one of the biggest things that we're fortunate about is because Gary is someone who was actually there in Vietnam. He's writing the story today. He's talking about 40 years later how he still lives it today. And I have an agenda in this show. I want every single politician or anybody who is in a position of making decisions to read this book and then think twice. Think about what you learned in this book before you send somebody else over to military combat. And I so much want that. Let's go to the next slide. Because send your member of Congress this book. Now, we're not pushing the sales of a book, but we kind of are, because we want every single member of Congress to get this book. Go to Amazon.com, search Gary Prisk, send the book to your member of Congress. Let's go to another review. For those of us who served in Vietnam and thought that $60 a month was fun money, the guys in this book knew it was $2 a day for being in hell. Doesn't sound like nearly enough to die for. This guy lived to tell about it. I think that this was mind-altering to live through. I'll bet it wasn't easy to write about either. He's right about the mind-altering part, isn't he?
Absolutely. And it occurs so fast that for a period of time you still think you're normal.
Are you normal?
No, no, I'm pretty sure I'm not. But
you've had a successful business for quite some time.
But I wanted to get my PhD in finance. And I was teaching at the University of Washington, Finance 350, and I couldn't stand to be indoors. And so I had to go outside and be a builder.
Let's go to the next slide. Tell us what it was like to be in a chopper at a time where there was enemy fire in a Huey, and then it was crashing.
Well, the Hueys were so fragile. The AK-47 rounds would go through them like they were going through a spider web. And Hueys would go out of control with very few hits. They weren't like the B-17 or the B-24 that could take hundreds of hits, and all you had to do is hit one of the rotors, and that bird was coming down. And I think I had 42 combat assaults while I was in Vietnam, and they were all chaos. So I always rode on the right skid and the second bird. And
on the outside of the...
on the outside of the aircraft, so I could get the hell out of it.
Let's go to the next part of the slide, because we go back to the book. Diggett was at least in one piece. His mama could caress his face again. Now, you were telling me before the show that you only knew this man for 3 days.
Yeah. He was a black man, and but they were all the same. Once they died, if their body was viewable, that was a good thing. But most of the men that died, their bodies weren't viewable. I mean, their parents or their relatives couldn't, you just couldn't show them what was left of their sons.
So Diggett died in your arms. I guess others did too.
Well, yeah, Diggett, and I don't know how many men died. It was just...
Let's go back to the book. Actually, this is another review. True to the action of war, Prisk relentlessly slams the reader to gasp for air in a foxhole or scream for a medic without notice, then find insightful humor. You talked about the humor of the body bag. Was there other humor? Was there real humor there?
Yeah, it was pretty vicious humor.
Vicious humor. Because it had to be?
It had to be. And anything was fair game. People's families, their mothers, anything that you could think of to just break that feeling of you're going to die in the next minute or two or in the next day. Anything to break that tenseness. Yeah.
Let's go back to the review, because there's something really interesting that's said in there. The individual stories in fiction form of servicemen and women living and dying in Vietnam are revealed in heart-wrenching clarity. The characters in this book, even if they live, cannot go home. Is that right?
That's a fact.
You can't go home?
There is no home like the one you left. That home is gone.
Now, Gary, let me ask, is this just you, or is this every veteran you meet?
It's just every infantryman I've ever come across. is dealing with the same problem. I started to write this book when a friend of mine killed a policeman in Fairfield, California. His nickname was Pack Rat, and he had a foxhole dug in his front yard, foxholes in his side yard, foxholes in his backyard, all with sandbags, and he had no legs, partial right hand, and
it was 1987.
This was 87, and that's when I started to write. I said, I got to tell somebody how crazy this process is.
He killed a police officer that was just coming to check on him, right?
He had discharged a weapon. This police officer came into a broadslide in front of his house. The kid had only been in a police officer for 9 months, and Pack Rat dropped him right in the street.
Because he thought he was a Viet Cong soldier.
That's what he told me in jail.
Do you doubt that?
I don't know.
Let's go back to the book. Live with the never-ending tension of waiting for the one little mistake that it will end all for you, or the men you have sworn to get through today and the next day. Tell us about a day in the life of being a soldier in Vietnam, an infantryman in Vietnam.
The nights were hell. The nights were just awful. Especially in the mountains. You just knew the North Vietnamese were a great army. They were a great infantry. I mean, they didn't seem to care how many men they lost. And so the nights were, if a firefight started at night, you were in trouble because they figured they had enough people to end it before dawn. If you didn't get hit at night, then you had the dawn to look forward to, and everybody's on stand to at dawn, and you're waiting to get hit again. And then if you got through stand to, then you had to pick one of the other you had to go out of that, what's called a logger, in a different direction than you came into it. And you expected within the first couple 100 meters that you were going to get hit then. And then you were back out. If it didn't happen then you were back out on a search and destroy mission.
So every second of every day, you were in fear for your life. And I think when we were talking before for the show, you said it actually was better when the firefight began.
Yeah, well, it was almost a relief, because you expected it to happen, and the longer you expected it, the more real it became, and then all of a sudden it would happen. And then it would just be total chaos, and then everybody would have to clean up the mess. And all firefights are the same. Nobody wins them. I've heard Eastern politicians say that we won every battle, and that's just total horse manure. I can name battles that we didn't win.
I want to skip over, if we can, to the slide about silence, because this is a picture of someone in the jungle. Silence was abnormal in the jungle, not something a GI could barter with. His memories would talk about hiding at the time, wired to the revenge of close quarters, and we're going to take a break right there, and we'll come back with that.